The Kanye song All of the Lights is an incredible song that pulls out all of the stops. There's an incredible beat, huge sounding stadium brass, and features 14 different celebrity vocalists all singing together. But what are the lights? Today I'm breaking down the Kanye song All of the Lights, the metaphor and warning behind it, talking to one of the musicians involved.
Kanye calls me up and he's like, dude, I want you to do a horn section that sounds like, a stadium at halftime.
Seeing how this song and album was Kanye's backhanded apology. Oh, and I got something exciting to announce. Ready? Fame is an interesting thing. A lot of people think they want it, but most people don't understand what it actually entails. And even fewer are actually built to be able to handle it. And as the world continues to be more connected, and being famous means being known, loved, and hated by even more people, fame has become a messy thing. The human brain is not built for this. It's especially not built for the worldwide backlash you'd receive if you did something like this. Now, I can't include the footage, but you remember this, right? Taylor Swift won the VMA in 2009 for Video of the Year, and during her acceptance speech, Kanye grabs the mic, goes, "I'm really happy for you, I'm gonna let you finish, but Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time," then hands the mic back while people are booing it. Look, I'm not here to defend Kanye's actions, either in this clip or in more recent behavior, which is obviously far worse. But this moment at the 2009 VMAs is the inciting incident that caused a major backlash, a self-imposed exile, and eventually one of his best albums, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, which includes All of the Lights. And in order to understand this song, we have to understand the gravity of this moment. So Kanye's debut album, The College Dropout, was released in 2004, followed by Late Registration in 2005, Graduation 2007. There's an evolution of his style throughout these albums, but then in 2008 he released 808s and Heartbreak, which was a drastic departure from his previous sound. The whole thing is much mellower and features Kanye singing with autotune. This beat is much more stripped down than his previous work. This doesn't sound like Kanye. And then there's the vocal. Kanye is singing instead of rapping, and it's processed with heavy autotune, but in a way that's not as clean as someone like T-Pain, who pioneered the autotune effect. He premiered the song Love Lockdown at the 2008 VMAs, and at first, by and large, people didn't get it. While his first 3 albums were all nominated for multiple Grammys, and each of them won the award for Best Rap Album, 808s was nominated for some smaller awards, but didn't win anything. 808s was so different for a couple reasons. For one, since Graduation was released, Kanye's relationship with his longtime fiancée ended, and for 2, his mother had just passed away, and for 3, he was struggling with how to handle fame. Kanye described 808s to MTV as, "It's a little bit of autotune and a whole lot of up life." This album was therapeutic. It's lonely at the top. And yes, I know you might be thinking, what am I supposed to feel bad for this rich and famous dude who's done X, Y, and Z since? I just want you to understand, this guy is incredibly talented, incredibly successful, and then all of a sudden he loses the 2 closest people in his life. That's not something that being famous or having money can actually help with. Of course he made 808s after all of that. This is his Empire Strikes Back moment. Just like Luke, he's going through a lot, learning more about who he is, has to deal with personal tragedy, and ultimately loses his hand. Sorry, that's just Luke Skywalker, that's not Kanye. And so then, of course, after all of this, knowing who Kanye is and what he's been through, of course he's gonna get on stage and interrupt Taylor Swift like that. The backlash to this was harsh and swift. The pun not intended, but I'm keeping it. Kanye had been planning a joint tour with Lady Gaga, which was canceled shortly after this incident. A lot of other artists and fans were mad at Kanye, and this incident would follow him for the next decade. He was already having a hard time with fame in his personal life, and his behavior at the VMAs made millions of people hate him. As a result of this incident at the 2009 VMAs, Lady Gaga went on her own solo tour, and Kanye basically went into exile. He retreated from the public eye and ultimately landed in Hawaii, where he would begin working on his next album, his backhanded apology, more on that in a minute, 2010's My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. By the way, the name of the canceled Kanye and Lady Gaga tour? Fame Kills. Fame's a crazy thing. So now that we understand the context around it, let's talk about All of the Lights. This starts with an orchestral interlude, which includes musical themes heard in the main song, but played with this beautiful piano and cello. This gives way to a brass section announcing the start of the main song. Jeff Basker, who co-produced this song, has said that the initial creation of the song was very quick, with him coming up with the idea for the line and Kanye jumping on MPC drums with him, but the rest of the song took many months and versions, adding different elements to make it feel right. One of those elements was the brass section itself. For this, Kanye turned to Ken Lewis, who he had worked with before on multiple albums.
I produced the horn section on all of the lights. It's all live brass. All live brass, all done in my studio. Kanye calls me up and he's like, dude, I want you to do a horn section that sounds like, a stadium at halftime. And all he did was he sent me this little Casio melody that sounded like a $20 keyboard. And that was it. And then he calls and he's like, I want it to sound like a stadium at halftime with a marching band. And I produced and arranged the whole thing with, my horn player was Danny Flam, who's from New York Brass, and brilliant horn player. He brought like 25 horns to the session, I'm not joking. And he could play every single one of them. There was like, he brought 4 different trombones, probably 3 different trumpets, a tuba, a sousaphone, another sousaphone, a bass trumpet, a flugelhorn, and we just kind of went through about an 8-hour, maybe 10-hour session and turned in the exact thing that you hear, and it was radio silence. Didn't hear a thing, which usually in Kanye land means, he listened for like 30 seconds and it didn't catch him, but like 3 months later they called me for something else. And I hadn't heard about the horns. I'm like, yo, the horns on Ghetto University, what happened to those? And he's like, oh no, they're great. We love them. They're perfect. They're in. I'm like, thank you. Because I've done a bunch of other horn sections that I thought were money that he hasn't used. Choirs.
By the way, when I talked to Ken Lewis, we talked for almost an hour, not only about his work with Kanye, but also like J. Cole, Usher, Eminem, Alicia Keys, and the secret Wu-Tang album. The one where there's only 1 copy made? Ken mixed that album. But I can't put all of that in this video. But you know where I can put it? On the brand new YouTube channel, Digging the Talks. This is where I'll post additional clips from interviews that don't fit in a full video like this one. These are stories about incredible music you love by some of the people who made it. Go subscribe to that channel if you want to go even deeper with some of the guests I have on. If you're thinking, well, what are the other guests? Go subscribe and find out. Should I announce the other thing now or just get back to the video? Let's just get back to the video. We'll keep going. I'll circle back. I got another announcement in just a moment. I basically hear 2 complementary storylines happening in all of the lights. One is Kanye speaking as a character, speaking metaphorically about his own life. We'll talk about this one in a second. The other is the hook, which basically functions as sirens. Not the police kind, the Greek mythology kind. In the Odyssey, Odysseus is sailing his ship by the sirens, who are basically kind of like mermaids who sing these beautiful songs and lure sailors towards them, but ultimately to their death by crashing into the rocks. Odysseus knows this song is going to be so beautiful he won't be able to resist, so he instructs his crew to put beeswax in their ears and tie him to the mast and not let him free no matter how much he begs. Their song sounds so alluring, but it will ultimately lead to destruction. This is the hook of the song. Rihanna is singing, "Turn up the lights in here, baby, I want you to see everything," which sounds sexual at first, but it ends with the line, "want you to see all of the lights." Her tempting song isn't quite what it seems. This keeps going with lyrics like fast cars, shooting stars, until it's Vegas everywhere we are, and if you want it, you can get it for the rest of your life. Now, on the surface, this feels like a good thing. I mean, who wouldn't want to live their life surrounded by the glitz and glam of Vegas? But if we're turning on all of the lights, I mean, have you ever been to the Las Vegas Strip at like 10 a.m.? That feels like turning on the lights at a middle school dance. It's just gross. No disrespect to anyone who lives in Vegas, but what I'm hearing with this hook throughout the song is that the excess and fancy lifestyle of celebrities may sound appealing at first, but if you imagine your whole life like this, that's something different. This hook comes back a few times and there's more to it, but let's switch to our other storyline, Kanye's verse. In his first line, he says he's sad because Michael Jackson has just died, which was true. Michael passed away in 2009, and in the liner notes of this album, Kanye has dedicated it to him. And is there a more tragic tale of the dangers of fame than Michael Jackson? The verse continues with Kanye describing a domestic abuse situation where he gets sent to prison, and when he finally gets out, he comes back to his girl and she's with somebody else, so he has to take him to that ghetto university. That was actually the original title of the song, Ghetto University. But Kanye never went to prison for domestic abuse. He's speaking metaphorically about the Taylor Swift incident at the VMAs, with his girl acting as the stand-in for the general public. It's apparently moved on without him after he messed up and he went to prison or his self-imposed exile. Now he's back and he's gonna take his replacement to that ghetto university, which implies he's gonna beat up the new boyfriend, or in the non-metaphorical case, release an incredible album. The addition of university is a nice touch considering his first 3 albums were all college themed. Then we get to a list of different kinds of lights. Cop lights, flashlights, spotlights, strobe lights, street lights, a mix of good and bad kinds of lights that, if they're shown on you, could portray you differently. The hook repeats all of the lights, and now it's starting to feel overwhelming, almost how the production of this song is sonically overwhelming. We've got that huge brass, but also super busy drums. There's just so much happening in this song. Kanye's painting a picture. He didn't want Ken Lewis to make the horns sound like a stadium at halftime just because that's a fun idea. He wants you, the listener, to feel like you're in the middle of a stadium and everyone is looking at you and you can't hide because it's so bright. They can see everything from every angle. He wants you to feel overwhelmed. He wants you to understand this siren song isn't so sweet when you start to get closer. Alright, so here's the other announcement. Clips of my interview with Ken Lewis are going up on the Diggin' the Talks YouTube channel, but our full conversation is now available on the brand new Digging the Greats podcast. Go subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. I've got several interview episodes already on the way, and I can't wait for you to hear them. All right, let's keep going. Verse 2. Kanye continues his story and reveals that he can't see his daughter because of a restraining order and is begging for his girl to take him back because he doesn't want his daughter to grow up in that ghetto university. Except Kanye didn't have kids in 2010. He's speaking metaphorically again. His daughter is his inner creative child, which he alluded to on the previous song Power. And he's begging his girl, the public, to take him back because he wants to reconnect with his creativity. We get another hook, and this time though, it feels like the whole fame thing is a really mixed bag. Our narrator, Kanye's story, is having a real bad time, and we just keep shining every bright light possible on him. Kid Cudi comes in with a bridge that seems to be saying, you just gotta make undeniably great music. The next part is sung by Fergie of the Black Eyed Peas, who seems to be playing the character of the daughter who's grown up, and it hasn't worked out so well for her. Then we get to another hook, this time sung by an insane choir. Rihanna, The Dream, who by the way wrote this hook, Charlie Wilson, John Legend, Elton John, Alicia Keys, Drake, Ken Lewis, and more. If this hook is a siren song about fame that keeps getting darker, this time it feels like all of these celebrity vocalists have also crashed on the rocks and are now singing the siren song as a warning to Kanye, who sounds like he may not heed their warning. And fast forwarding to the present day, I mean, you can't argue that he hasn't steered his ship into the rocks. While this song metaphorically acknowledges the 2009 VMAs, he's not quite apologizing. He even said himself in 2013, "Dark Fantasy was my long backhanded apology." You know how people give a backhanded compliment? It was a backhanded apology. It was like, all these raps, all these sonic acrobatics, I was like, let me show you guys what I can do, and please accept me back. You want to have me on your shelves. And of course, we did accept him back. This album is incredible, but fast forward to now and it's not so black and white. The bright lights of fame have taken a toll. It's happened time and time again. An artist blows up, becomes huge, and then has to deal with the result of their success, their fame. It's not as amazing as it might seem. Kanye isn't the first artist to grapple with fame. Lady Gaga's 2009 album was called Fame Monster, and the canceled tour with Kanye again was called Fame Kills. Kendrick Lamar's 2015 album, To Pimp a Butterfly, sees him unsure of how to handle his fame. Humans just aren't built for this level of super fame. And in a case of life imitating art, Rihanna performed the hook of this song at the 2023 Super Bowl halftime show. She's got lights on her, actual stadium halftime horns happening, and she was pregnant, which was the main thing that people talked about after the show. Rihanna performing a literal version of all of the lights at the Super Bowl feels like an episode of Black Mirror. Fame, man, it's crazy. But in typical Kanye fashion, he made undeniably great art. Ken Lewis, by the way, also re-recorded the acoustic guitar sample on another Kanye song from years prior, All Falls Down, and that's just another example of Kanye's incredible ability to distill a big idea into a piece of art. But yeah, you know the drill. Click here to watch that video.